They say Hollywood kills the innocent. They never warn you that sometimes it buries them alive. I'm leaving this behind because when I vanish, truly vanish this time, I need the truth to exist somewhere outside his reach. My name is Sophia. 6 months ago, the world watched me die. They lit candles along Venice Beach, their flames trembling in the salt air. Bouquets wilted outside the Chateau Marmont, stacked beneath my photograph like offerings to a ghost. My name trended for days, another beautiful tragedy, another warning about fame devouring its own. Julian Cross, my fiancé, Hollywood's golden genius, the man who won an Oscar before he turned 30, cried on national television. You probably saw it. His voice cracked at all the right moments as he described finding my body. America believed him. Everyone did. Except I never died. I'm writing this from a locked room beneath the Hollywood Hills. Julian built it himself. A perfect replica of our bedroom in Malibu, down to the silk curtains, the antique vanity, the scent of the ocean drifting through the air. But the ocean isn't real. The window is a screen. The sunset repeats every 23 minutes. The door only opens from the outside. And right now, the man who buried me alive in the world's imagination is upstairs, rehearsing his grief, polishing it, refining it, turning it into something award-worthy. This is the story of how Julian Cross murdered me without killing me. And how I'm going to return the favor, slowly, precisely, until his entire empire collapses, one frame at a time, and the only thing left of him is silence after the credits roll. : The chapel doors burst open just as the officiant asked if anyone objected to our union. Every head turned. There she stood, Vanessa Brooks, my fiancé's ex-girlfriend, in a blood-red dress that screamed for attention, her finger pointed directly at my 8-year-old son, Tyler, sitting in the front row. That boy, she declared, her voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling of St. Michael's Cathedral in downtown Portland, Oregon, is my son. And I have the DNA test to prove it. The gasps rippled through our 200 guests like a shockwave. My hands, clutching a bouquet of white roses, began to tremble. But I didn't look away. I didn't run. I smiled, a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes, and kept my feet planted exactly where they were. Because I knew something Vanessa didn't. My name is Catherine Hayes. 34 years old, financial analyst, weekend yoga enthusiast, and, as of 3 hours ago, supposed mother to a child who wasn't biologically mine. At least, that's what the woman in red wanted everyone to believe. Let me take you back 6 months, to where this story really begins. I met James Mitchell at a coffee shop in the Pearl District, Stumptown Coffee, to be exact. It was one of those quintessential Portland mornings, drizzling rain, the smell of fresh espresso, and indie music playing just loud enough to be atmospheric but not intrusive. He was a pediatric surgeon at Oregon Health and Science University, and I was running late for a client meeting, fumbling with my laptop bag when I accidentally knocked his Americano all over his very expensive-looking briefcase. Most people would have been furious. James just laughed, those kind hazel eyes crinkling at the corners, and said, "Well, that's one way to make an impression." 3 months later, he proposed at Cannon Beach, down on one knee in the sand as the sun set over Haystack Rock. It was perfect. He was perfect. There was only one complication: Tyler. Tyler wasn't my biological son. He was my nephew, my late sister Rachel's boy. She'd died in a car accident 2 years earlier on Interstate 5, just outside of Eugene, and I'd adopted Tyler without hesitation. He'd been through enough trauma. He needed stability, love, and a home that wouldn't crumble around him. James loved Tyler like his own from day one. They'd bond over basketball games at the Moda Center, watching the Trailblazers, or building elaborate Lego sets on Sunday afternoons. Tyler had even started calling James Dad a few weeks before the proposal. everything was falling into place. Until Vanessa. I'd heard about Vanessa Brooks before I ever saw her. James's college sweetheart, the one who'd broken his heart when she left him for a job opportunity in Seattle 7 years ago. He'd been honest about their history, 3 years together, an engagement that fell apart, residual bitterness on both sides. What he hadn't mentioned was that she'd been keeping tabs on him. The first sign of trouble came 2 weeks before the wedding. An anonymous email arrived in my inbox with no subject line, just a single sentence. Ask James about November 2015. I showed it to James that night in our apartment in the Alphabet District. He'd gone pale, set down his wine glass, and told me the truth. In November 2015, a few months after Vanessa had left him, she'd called him out of the blue. She was back in Portland for a weekend, emotional, regretful. They'd met for drinks at a bar in the Alberta Arts District. One thing led to another. It was a mistake, a one-night relapse fueled by nostalgia and too much bourbon. He never heard from her again after that weekend. No calls, no texts, nothing. He assumed she'd moved on for good. "Catherine," he said, taking my hands, "I should have told you earlier. But it was so long ago, and it meant nothing. She's been out of my life for years." I believed him. I forgave him. It was ancient history. But now, standing at the altar in St. Michael's Cathedral on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, I realized Vanessa had been playing a much longer game. The silence in the cathedral was deafening. My maid of honor, Jenna, stood frozen beside me, her face a mixture of shock and fury. Tyler, dressed in his little gray suit, looked confused and scared. My mother, seated in the second row, had her hand over her mouth. James turned to face Vanessa, his expression a mixture of disbelief and anger. "What are you talking about?" Vanessa took 3 slow steps down the aisle, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She pulled a folded piece of paper from her clutch, a document that looked official, complete with a laboratory logo at the top. "This," she said, holding it up for everyone to see, "is a DNA test proving that Tyler Mitchell is my biological son. Born 9 months after our reunion in November 2015. My mind raced. The timeline was wrong. Tyler was 8 years old. He'd been born in 2016, but in March 2016, not August. He couldn't possibly be the product of a November 2015 encounter. But Vanessa was counting on chaos, not fact-checking. "You've been raising my child, Catherine," she continued, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "I gave him up for adoption because I wasn't ready to be a mother. But I never stopped loving him. And now that I'm financially stable, I want him back." The crowd erupted into murmurs. Someone's aunt in the back row said, "Oh my God." A groomsman whispered something to another. Tyler started to cry. James stepped forward, his voice steel. "Vanessa, this is insane. Tyler is Catherine's nephew. His mother, Catherine's sister, died 2 years ago. We have the adoption papers, the death certificate, everything." Vanessa didn't even flinch. "Papers can be forged. DNA doesn't lie." That's when I realized what she was really doing. This wasn't about Tyler. This was about destroying me, humiliating James, and blowing up our wedding in the most spectacular way possible. She wanted chaos. She wanted revenge for whatever slight, real or imagined, she felt James had inflicted on her. But I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. I took a deep breath, handed my bouquet to Jenna, and walked down the 3 steps from the altar. My ivory dress rustled as I approached Vanessa, stopping just a few feet away from her. "That's a very official-looking document," I said calmly. "May I see it?" Vanessa hesitated for just a fraction of a second, long enough for me to know I was right, but then handed it over with a smug smile. I scanned the paper. Laboratory of Genomic Solutions, Seattle, Washington. Test date, 2 weeks ago. Alleged mother, Vanessa Brooks. Alleged child, Tyler Mitchell. And there it was, in the fine print at the bottom, sample collection method, submitted remotely via buccal swab. I looked up at her. You never met Tyler. You don't have his DNA. So how exactly did you get a sample for this test? The color drained from her face. I'll tell you how, I continued, my voice steady but loud enough for everyone to hear. You didn't. This is fake. You probably paid someone on the internet to mock up a DNA test, hoping we'd be too shocked to question it in the moment. I turned to face our guests. Tyler's birth certificate, his adoption records, his medical history, everything is documented and verifiable. His mother was my sister, Rachel Hayes, who died on July 14, 2022, in Eugene, Oregon. Tyler was born on March 18, 2016, at Providence St. Vincent Medical Center right here in Portland. That's 9 months after March 2015, not November 2015. The timeline doesn't even add up. Vanessa's mouth opened, but no sound came out. James pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police. This is harassment, defamation, and disruption of a private event. You need to leave, Vanessa. Now. 2 of James's groomsmen, his brother Marcus and his friend Owen, both over 6 feet tall, stepped forward, flanking Vanessa. This isn't over, she hissed, backing toward the door. You'll regret this, Catherine. No, I replied, my voice ice cold. You will. Because we're pressing charges. And every single person in this room just witnessed you attempt to commit fraud. Marcus and Owen escorted her out. The heavy wooden doors slammed shut behind them. For a moment, the cathedral was completely silent. Then my Uncle Ray, sitting in the 4th row, started clapping. Slowly at first, then faster. Others joined in. Within seconds, the entire room was applauding. Tyler ran up to me, wrapping his arms around my waist. Mom, I was so scared. I knelt down, smoothing his hair. I know, sweetheart. But it's over now. She's gone. James joined us, putting his hand on Tyler's shoulder and looking into my eyes. Catherine, I am so sorry. I never thought. I know, I said softly. This wasn't your fault. The officiant, Father David, cleared his throat from the altar. Well, he said with a wry smile, that was certainly a first in my 30 years of performing weddings. Shall we continue? Laughter rippled through the crowd, genuine, relieved laughter. I stood, took James's hand, and walked back up to the altar. Yes, I said. Let's finish this. We said our vows with tears in our eyes, not from sadness, but from the sheer overwhelming relief of having survived the storm. When Father David pronounced us husband and wife, the applause was thunderous. At the reception at the Sentinel Hotel downtown, the drama became the story everyone wanted to discuss. But instead of pity or awkwardness, there was admiration. People kept coming up to me, saying things like, I can't believe how calm you were, and you handled that with such grace. The truth was, I hadn't felt calm. I'd felt terrified. But I'd also felt something else, certainty. Certainty in who I was, who Tyler was, and what we'd built together. 3 days after the wedding, while James and I were on our honeymoon in Bend, Oregon, we got a call from our attorney. Vanessa had been arrested for fraud and harassment. The DNA test was exactly what I'd suspected, a poorly made forgery she'd commissioned from a website that specialized in fake documents. She pled guilty to avoid trial and was ordered to pay restitution, serve community service, and stay at least 500 feet away from our family. We never heard from her again. A year later, on a sunny Saturday afternoon, I stood in our backyard in Lake Oswego, watching James teach Tyler how to ride a bike without training wheels. Tyler was laughing, wobbling but determined, and James was running alongside him, one hand barely touching the seat. Jenna walked over, handing me a glass of lemonade. You ever think about that day? She asked. Sometimes, I admitted. But not as much as you'd think. You know what I remember most? Jenna said. That smile. When she made that accusation, and you smiled, I thought, that's the moment Catherine decided she wasn't going to be a victim. I took a sip of lemonade, watching my son, finally find his balance and pedal forward on his own, James cheering behind him. You're right, I said. I wasn't going to let her take that day from us. From Tyler. He'd already lost so much. Jenna clinked her glass against mine. To keeping your vows. To keeping what matters, I corrected. And as Tyler rode in triumphant circles around the yard, I realized that Vanessa had given me something unexpected that day at the cathedral: absolute clarity. Love isn't about biology. It's about showing up. It's about standing firm when the doors burst open and chaos tries to steal your joy. And I would stand firm for this family every single time.